All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, as we are about to get underway here for our third and final stint of the day for this Nurburgring Enduro, and the very last stint of our entire time for P1R SEC this season. And excuse me, I have to take care of this. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, as we are about to get underway for the final stint of today's Nurburgring 6-hour Enduro, and the final stint for the entire 2025 season of the P1R SEC Enduro. We may be down a driver, sadly, but real quickly, let's look through the drivers who will be here. Barcode and Moonrise are both fighting for overall win right now. Moonrise took victory in Stint 1 by a significant margin. Barcode took victory in Stint 2 by a significant margin as well. We'll get into the gap between them shortly. We also have Indiel Illusion coming back in the Dodge Viper. TNR RX FFEX is going to be back in the Mercedes. Indiel Cosmic is going to be back in the number 51 BMW M8. Snowbarski will be taking over the number 64 green and white Dodge Viper. Sit Sunrise will be back in the number 180 Dodge. Chrysalid will be back in the black Chevrolet, number 150. ZR Haya Cranky is back in the Mercedes. He's trying to pull off a podium result overall. P1R Habit is going to be back in the orange and black McLaren, and Indiel Avocado will be in the other McLaren. I don't know if we're going to start with only 11 drivers or if we are waiting on one more person, but we are in a prolonged holding pattern at the moment. Real quickly, I do want to talk about the gap overall. Right now, Moonrise has covered 449.931 miles between stints 1 and 2 together. Barcode has covered 449.581 miles. So there is a 0.35 mile difference between the two of them in Moonrise's favor, which works out to being 1,848 feet. So Barcode needs to be ahead of Moonrise by either a little bit over a third of a mile, or needs Moonrise to end up with that much penalty and then some. It's still very much in play for Barcode because Moonrise completely bungled the strategy and lost a significant amount of ground at the end of the prior stint. So if Moonrise has a similar giant mess up, they could still end up losing the event overall. Avocado is still third in overall distance. Haya Cranky is still fourth in overall distance, and Chrysalid is currently fifth in overall distance right now. Habit and RX both have skipped one stint each. They are soloing 2 stints apiece, so they're basically fighting for last between each other. We have lost another car. I'm not really sure who it is we lost. So sadly, this will end up being the smallest field we have had the entire season, mainly because there are just a lot of people who, if they're not partaking in the tour event, they are just too scared to actually drive Nurburgring Nordschleife. As we are currently waiting to load onto the circuit. Hopefully we don't have to do a whole lot of reloads this time before we get underway here. Other thing to consider, this is going to start at night, but this stint will end in the daytime. So handling of the cars will change not significantly, but to a moderate amount from start to end. So we'll see the field roll through turn 1 here first. Moonrise has the advantage in the Chevrolet. Barcode in distance, but Barcode has what is arguably the superior car in the Dodge Viper. And we are underway. Green flag once again at Nurburgring Nordschleife. The big thing for Moonrise is that if he replicates his performance in Stint 1 here in Stint 2, but just remembers to put 10% extra fuel in the tank on the final pit stop, he will be fine. He would not have to spend time saving fuel. He would be able to go much more aggressively and much deeper in the last few minutes and would likely be able to maintain the majority of his lead over Barca. Now, obviously, he would want to do better than that, but in worst case scenario, if he's only able to replicate his performance in Stint 2, he could still pull this off as long as he remembers to put more fuel in the tank in the final pit stop. Again, the Chevy seems to burn through about 19% of its fuel tank in a lap. The Dodge seems to burn up something a little bit closer to about 13% of its fuel tank in a lap. No, not 13, maybe closer to 16%, but still. They run nose to tail at the head of the field. Avocado runs in third with Hayek Cranky in fourth right behind. That is a outside fight. And a little bit later on, we'll take a little bit closer of a look between the two of them to see how that's going. But I do believe that overall, Avocado still has the advantage, especially as Hayek Cranky is now already under threat from Chrysalid. Those two fought each other back in Stint 1. They're going at it again here in Stint 2. Mind you, Hayek Cranky and Chrysalid are basically both doing Ironmans today. Hayek Cranky and Chrysalid have run all stints, so they are some of the other drivers. They are the other two drivers doing Ironman runs today, along with Bark and Moonrise. So we have 4. Actually, I think Cosmic may have done. I don't remember if Cosmic's done the last 2 stints as well, but at least 4 of our drivers are Ironmanning today's event. Hayek Cranky is now closed back in on Avocado. Avocado can see Barcode and Moonrise just ahead of him, as our top 4 are moving away from the rest of the field and just kind of pulling into groups of 2 on 2 right now. Again, Moonrise does not have to win this by a massive margin, although I guarantee you he would prefer it. If he can just win or stay right behind Barcode, he'd be fine. And Barcode has a big slide into the dirt, coming onto one of the longer straightaways. Now, he should still be close enough to use the draft to close back in a bit on Moonrise, but a big mistake like that is not going to help him in the slightest here. Gap has opened up just a bit, though. Is Avocado close enough to get a draft off of Barcode? Because if he is, that could have an interesting knock-on effect. Have we already had a disconnect? We're not even a half lap through. Yes, we have. It is P1R Habit who disconnects mere moments into the event. And we've just had another disconnect as well. I have to wonder how many of these are actual disconnects and how many of them are people who just are giving up because they do not want to run a full 2 hours here. I will try and reach out to P1R Habit and see if he has anything he wants to try and say here. Well, I would if I could see him on the... There he is. So Sit Sunrise is now guaranteed a top 10 result at least. And Hayek Cranky has stuck by Avocado. They have Chrysalid running right behind along with Cosmic and Illusion. So there's a bungle of cars here. 4 cars all nose to tail. Very similar to something we saw earlier. Chrysalid very nearly goes off circuit and into the wall there. A little surprised he's able to keep it under him. Oh, and Hayek Cranky hard into the outside wall. And he's still sliding, drifting. He licks the outside wall again. And that's a Chevy that's slow. That's Moonrise. Moonrise involved in an accident as well. And Cranky wrecks again. And Snowbarski. No, that's not him. That's RX who's had an accident. And it's all gone chaotic in one of the narrowest parts of the circuit. And now Barcode is able to run away in the distance as Moonrise has had an accident very early on and is shunted out of the top half of the grid. That could be all it takes to decide the end results of this race. That might be it. Based on how long it took Barcode to move up the grid earlier in Stint 1, when he finally puts soft tires on, there may not be enough time for Moonrise to close back in on Barcode and start making anything happen. Illusion in the Dodge on the outside, trying to give Moonrise a little bit of issue. Illusion versus Moonrise. The sheer power of the Corvette will let him pull ahead of the Dodge Viper. We did not see what happened between the two of them, and I do apologize. We were a little bit more focused on what happened with Hayek Cranky, who has now slipped back to 7th, and in the end, it is now NDL Avocado, who has worked up into the 2nd spot, but he is so far away from Barcode. There is no shot in the world of Avocado being able to run down ESV Barcode here. And Chrysalid is up to 3rd, the highest he has been on merit all day long. Well, it's not true merit. Technically, he had 2 guys ahead of him crash out, but still, that is the strongest he has been all day long on merit. Around the carousel, and Chrysalid misses the carousel and is going to lose the ground to Cosmic. So Chrysalid slips back to 4th now. He'll be the next driver that Moonrise has to work on. Both these drivers are aggressive. Moonrise has to be very thoughtful about how he's going to muscle his way by this Chevrolet and maybe learn some lessons here. So if he... Oh, no, he's not going to be able to get him there. So immediately Moonrise behind the 8-ball here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. He has to figure out a way by these cars ahead as fast as possible. Grizzled is still tucked up there behind Cosmic and Avocado as we ride on board with Grizzled at the moment. That BMW M8 rain as high as 3rd. Highest we've seen it all day today. That entrant that Cosmic is in, they have ran the BMW M8 literally all season long. Oh, that's a bit of a lunge. That is a bit of a lunge by Grizzled. Cosmic wiggles right in front of Grizzled. Can't get alongside. And all the while, Moonrise is tucked up there. Third, fourth, fifth, all on top of each other. Second place is right there as well. All the while, Barcode is vanishing into the ether, vanishing into the distance. And Moonrise's shot of stealing the win here is slipping away. Grizzled tries to get to the inside of that BMW M8, can't make it stick. McLaren, BMW, and then a pair of Chevys. Second, third, fourth, and fifth. Now they come onto the straightaway, and Moonrise has lost a huge chunk of ground. So these three will be all on their own. Cosmic has a great draft on Avocado. Grizzled has the draft on both of them. Do we see any moves? Here comes a move. Cosmic wants to go around the outside of Avocado. Drag race between those two as they run uphill. And around the outside, Cosmic, I think he's going to be able to make it stick. Here comes Grizzled now. He wants to go around the outside. He's trying to follow the BMW. And now he's going to go to the outside of the BMW, and Grizzled goes into the dirt. Grizzled is deep in the dirt. The BMW very nearly wrecks. And the BMW is still sideways. And he's around, completely around, out of control, has no control, slides in front of the other Chevrolet, and Moonrise falls back, hits the Dodge of Illusion, and falls to 7th. Everything went to chaos there, and Grizzled is back at Avocado. Moonrise has lost a bunch of ground to them all, and Barcode is absolutely gone. Chevy versus McLaren as they come back into the GP section. That was one absolutely absurd and obscene fight. We saw them trying to go not quite 3 wide, but side by side, where neither car had the stability to hold it. And we saw the Chevy of Grizzled get a little sideways, but more significantly, Cosmic was up in as high as 2nd position before completely losing control of the car, along with Moonrise, not Moonrise with Grizzled, but Grizzled was able to recover control faster. All right, now the things have calmed down just a bit. Let's look at the fuel and tire wear. Barcode, unsurprisingly, he is on the softs. For Avocado in 2nd. Softs. For Grizzled, likely on softs. Yep. For Moonrise, definitely on softs. For Haya Cranky, softs. For Illusion, softs. For Cosmic, softs. For Snowbarski, softs. For RX, softs. And for Sit Sunrise, soft. So literally everyone is on the exact same strategy right now. As we watch Avocado trying to keep Grizzled behind. Well, Avocado's actually pulling away from Grizzled. Grizzled now under threat from Moonrise. Chevy on Chevy action with Haya Cranky there as well. Remember, Haya Cranky wants to get around, will get these Chevys around that McLaren, because Cranky is fighting for a top 3 overall. Side by side between the Chevys. There's no room. You can't go side by side through these corners like that, boys. And there's 3 wide. There's no room. And Cranky backs out as he gets ran to the dirt and somehow has just enough room between himself and Illusion to get it together. And there goes a Chevy off. That's Grizzled. And Grizzled pushed down into the dirt and loses ground to both Moonrise and Cranky. So now Moonrise is back up into third, but has High and Cranky right behind him. And Moonrise still needs to run down Avocado before he can even think about doing anything to Barcode. Barcode has vanished into the distance. This might be all it takes for Barcode to steal this victory. Moonrise did nothing wrong in Stint 1, but completely bungled the strategy in Stint 2, and now he is so far behind the 8 ball early on in Stint 3, ESV Barcode might be able to recover from an absolute atrocious strategy, one of the worst strategies I've ever seen in Stint 1, to pull off the overall win here. But Moonrise is not saying die yet, and Haya Cranky is not saying die yet either. 4 different manufacturers in the top 4 positions right now. India Illusion in 5th is the first repeat manufacturer, as a Dodge Viper who just about gets hit, and he's gonna get knocked off circuit there by Chrysalid, and then Illusion hits Cosmic as Cosmic goes by. So Chrysalid back to his Stint 1 antics of being very aggressive and putting the bumper to other drivers here. Chrysalid goes back into the top 5. Moonrise slowly pulling away from Higher Cranky. He sees Indiel Avocado ahead. The big thing for Moonrise is that in Stint 2, it was Avocado who was running in second on the very first lap of the event, where he went off and fell all the way back to 7th. So Moonrise did not have to worry about Avocado at all in Stint 2. It took Moonrise about a third of Stint 1 to dispose of Avocado to where he wouldn't have to worry about that car at all, though. So we don't know how long it's going to take for Moonrise to catch and then overtake Avocado. If he spends too much time fighting with Avocado, there is no way in hell that he catches Barcode. Barcode is in a slower car. It's very unlikely he's going to burn up his tires. He doesn't have to worry about any wild alternate strategies, so Barcode could just run all softs all the way through with no issue today if he so chooses. And we know right now that all 10 cars on track will be paying at the exact same time. We know that the majority of the field here, well actually the entire field will be pitting at the end of this lap as their soft tires will be cooked. We do not know how the tire strategies will change after that though. Higher Cranky continues to run just a little bit behind Moonrise, but Moonrise is closing on Avocado, and he's honestly dragging Higher Cranky with him. If Moonrise disposes of Avocado nice and quickly, we could see Higher Cranky and Avocado going at for third. Remember, between the two of them, Avocado still has third, but it's not by a lot. If Avocado starts slipping down the grid, Higher Cranky might still be able to steal third overall, but you can visibly see that Barcode is completely gone away from the rest of the field here. So it's Dodge, McLaren, Chevy, Mercedes, top 4, and then another Chevy in 5th place, followed by another Dodge in 6th, and then the BMW M8 in 7th. Round the bend, into the twisty section. This is where the Chevy's usually been a little bit weaker than his competition. That does not seem to be the case right now. Moonrise is driving angry at the moment. He has caught him. He has caught Avocado much earlier than I thought. But catching is one thing. Making an overtake in Nordschleife is difficult, but you have to do it. You have to make the Oh, and Avocado went off all on his own. There wasn't even contact between the two of them. He went off on his own, and Moonrise is through. And now Avocados may have to worry about Haya Cranky here. And the gap between Moonrise and Barcode is still gigantic. Moonrise needs to just put together the best laps possible and hope that something bad happens to Barcode. The big thing that's going to hurt Avocado, though, is that because everyone is on the exact same strategy, Barcode, when he pits and comes out, will still be in completely clean air. No one is going to leapfrog into the lead briefly and hold Barcode up by any significant margin. Oh, Avocado is sideways. Here comes High and Cranky, and they're both into the dirt. And somehow, Avocado maintained it. He was deep into the dirt, but somehow he's still ahead of High and Cranky. Is this a race or is this a bar fight? Just about knows the tail, and the McLaren's into the dirt, and he slides, and the Mercedes slides, side by side as they come uphill, and the Mercedes clears them. High and Cranky back in the podium positions now. but it's going to be just as they come onto the straightaway. So a big draft gives a chance for the McLaren of Avocado to try and close back in right before these two go ahead and jump into the pit lane. Down the back straightaway, the best overtaking spot on the track if you've got the draft. What can Avocado do? There's also a fight behind between Crizzlet and Cosmic, but here comes the move. Avocado's gonna go the long way around, trying to clear High and Cranky using the draft. It is a drag race, McLaren versus Mercedes as they rush up to the top of the hill on the back straightaway. Can he complete the overtake? He will complete the overtake. Behind is Cosmic and Crizzlet. Crizzlet trying to go around the outside. These two got into the grass here last lap. This time they'll keep it together. Crizzlet stays just ahead of Cosmic for the moment. Snowbarski cleared RX as well, and now the entire field's going to jump into the pit lane. We're going to knock out Twitchman Day at ad break, and when we come back, we'll see where everyone has ended up after their first round of pit stops here at Nurburgring. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Barcode is your leader by a massive margin over F1R Moonrise, but Moonrise is finally in clean air, trying to run away a bit. Avocado is in third, High Cranky fourth, Crizzlet fifth, Cosmic sixth. So High Cranky has slipped back into the grasp of Crizzlet and Cosmic, but these two are back at it again. After both of them went off circuit at the end of the straightaway on lap one, they're still fighting for what is a top 5 result and dealing with High Cranky, who's just ahead. Cranky, I wonder if he is on some other strategy. For whatever reason, he is not able to pull away from this duo behind right now. Crizzlet and Cosmic are really lighting him up at the moment. I believe all three of these drivers are on soft tires right now. Although I won't really have a good idea until later. I do know that the top two are definitely on soft tires at the moment. Yeah, I believe the entire, at least everyone in the top 7 are all still running soft tires at this stage of the event. But this is the most interesting fight right now. High Cranky, Crizzlet, and Cosmic, although Cosmic is starting to lose touch with Crizzlet at the moment. Again, this stint is not going to be all night. It will get brighter later on in the stint, and that could end up semi-randomizing where everyone is. If anyone adjusted their setup to be better at the night, they'll likely be a little bit worse off in the daytime. Man, Crizzlet is really hoofing it right now. He's got a combination of the pure speed he had in Stint 1, along with the extreme, maybe excessive, depending on how you look at it, aggression from Stint 1. So great speed from Stint 2, aggression from Stint 1 makes Crizzlet a very, very destructive weapon here on the circuit. The crazy thing is that while these guys are all fighting, they are slowly reeling in DL Avocado a little bit ahead. Now, if Crizzlet and High Cranky start getting side by side, I think Avocado will rush into the distance. But there is a very distinct possibility that they catch Avocado with the way this is going, and we could be back to see another 4-way fight for this 3rd position here. Bit of a slide there by the Mercedes. Another drop into the dirt there by Avocado, and he has now been caught by Haya Cranky. Had a big issue here on the very first lap in these very, very tight walls. It's almost like a funnel rushing downhill. You're almost out of control, it feels, through all of these corners. And look at Avocado just sliding, trying to keep the car on the ideal line. I'm not saying that Haya Cranky is perfect, but Cranky is doing a lot better job holding the ideal line. And now it is a Mercedes closing back on the McLaren that is in third position. Coming up to the top of the hill here. That time, Crislin got into the dirt just a bit. He's going to lose a bit of ground. Might cause him to fall back into Cosmic. So does Cranky have anything for Avocado? Not yet, not here, although he's pretending. He's faking moves to the inside and outside, trying to catch the McLaren driver unexpectedly. Trying to go the long way around. Does he have the power? I don't think he has the power to pull up alongside. Not through here. I think he's just going to want to stay behind through this section. Not true straightaway, but not truly corners either. It's got a little bit of both. You'll get some great speed here, but you do not want to be side by side in these corners if you can help it. But Haya Cranky says, screw that. He needs to go up and make this overtake as fast as possible if he wants to steal third overall. And around the outside, can he complete this overtake? He does! Haya Cranky goes up into third position over Avocado. So Cranky in the Mercedes puts himself up into third, and for the Mercedes that was ridiculously overpowered early in the season, but then after it got nerfed and all the other cars got buffed, it was pushed way down the order. Late in the season, the Mercedes are trying to steal one more overall podium result in one of these events. Avocado now in fourth. And if he can't keep up with that Merc, he may be under threat from the Chevrolet of Chrysalid and the BMW of Cosmic. Moonrise is slowly rushing off into the distance away from this group. Between Moonrise and Barcode is literally just a matter of who can set the best laps more often. Moonrise does have a little bit of a gap you can afford to play with, but you do not want to play with it if you can help it. Again, the gap that Moonrise had over Barcode coming into this final stint was 0.35 miles or 1,848 feet. Barcode has gotten distance penalties in every stint. Moonrise has only gotten distance penalties once. And yeah, Avocado has slipped back into the grasp of Chrysalid. Chrysalid being very aggressive, putting the rear bumper to that McLaren. The McLaren's all sorts of sideways here. Chevy backs off just a little bit, trying to give him a good, clean line through some of these corners here. Haya Cranky very, very slowly opening the gap on Avocado. Oh, Avocado into the dirt there. Not too much, but it's enough to compromise his speed. All of a sudden, the Mercedes is right there. Big twitch by the McLaren. He's deep into the dirt. Here comes the Chevy. McLaren deep into the dirt. The Chevy is there. He has to back out just so they don't make contact. And the Chevy is off. Chrysalid is off. And Chrysalid falls back behind Cosmic again. And here comes Illusion. Illusion is by. Here comes RX. Can RX make the pass? Chrysalid backed out to not hit Avocado, but in the process it threw him off that very, very narrow racing line, and it sent him into the dirt in a very problematic corner, and now he is back out of the top 5. And has to deal with both the Dodge of Illusion and the BMW of Cosmic all over again. Cosmic trying to get one of those very rare top 5 results for this BMW M8 entry. It's great news for Haya Cranky, though. I mean, obviously, he would have preferred if Cosmic and Avocado were still actively fine with each other, but at least Haya Cranky has lost the most aggressive fighter. Now he gets to deal with Avocado, who is occasionally faster than him. The gap between Moonrise and Haya Cranky is about the same as the gap between Moonrise and Barcode right now. So it does look like first and second in this stint is pretty much guaranteed, barring a crazy accident by one of our top 2. But we just don't know if Moonrise has the pace to run down and overtake Barcode here. In stint 1, Moonrise seemed to be faster than Barcode in the daytime, but as the day went into night, it was a little bit harder to tell because they went on alternate tire strategies, and then Moonrise completely blew up his strategy by not putting enough fuel in on the run to the end. And unsurprisingly, no one pits this time. I imagine that the majority of the field is going to try and go all soft tires all the way through in this stint. Chrysalid has cleared Illusion. Cosmic will be the next driver we'll have to deal with. And for Chrysalid, it's going to be like, I have to deal with this BMW again? Didn't have to deal with the BMW at all in the first two stints, but Cosmic is giving Chrysalid a lot of frustrations. It's not even that Cosmic is doing it intentionally. Chrysalid went off fighting with Avocado, not Cosmic. But this Chevy BMW fight is like trying to mix oil and water. It seems every time they're together, they just are not mixing. Actually, it's probably not a good comparison to do that. I guess molten salt and hot water, I guess. I think that would be the better comparison to make. But yeah, it just seems to be an explosive reaction between these two, and Chrysalid is running down NDL Cosmic again. So it is not over. Big slide by the Chevy there. He's not quite cleared Illusion yet, but I think the sheer straight line speed should let him dispose of Illusion as this goes on. Real quickly, let's try and time the gap between our top two here. $1,001, $1,002, $1,003, $1,004, $1,005, $1,006, $1,007, $1,008, $1,009, $1,010. About 11 seconds right now between our top two, and then I would argue that from second to third is about another 9 seconds by the looks of it. As Chrysalid continues to close in slowly on NDL Cosmic. Again, everyone is still on, as far as we can tell, the exact same fuel and tire strategy. All softs thus far for their first two stints on tires. This is the very, very last stint that we are going to have in the 2025 P1R SEC Championship season, and it has, even if the rest of the race is incredibly boring, this first 30 minutes has been absolutely fantastic. And with Chrysalid closing in on Cosmic, I have a feeling it might just get a little bit explosive here all over again. Oh! Did Cosmic go into the dirt there? It looked like Cosmic may have just briefly touched the dirt. Chrysalid, though, has a big slide as well. Almost in sympathy, but the gap is still closing. And mind you, that is Illusion and RX, who's just behind. So if Chrysalid catches Cosmic and they spend way too much time side by side, it will bring Illusion and RX back in the fray. Mind you, RX was involved in that incident with Chrysalid and Avocado and Moonrise in the very first lap. So RX is trying to dig himself out of a hole as well. No big moves yet, though, at least not between these two. RX is keeping Illusion pretty honest, though, running right under the rear wing of that Dodge Viper. If you're in that Merc, we've seen RX try it before, as RX try and go the long way around the Viper through here. He lost a big amount of time, though. He bled off a huge chunk of time, but he's going to have some great draft. Does RX try it? Does RX try and go for a move to get around the Dodge Viper of NDL Illusion through here? It's a high-risk, high-reward move. We've seen him try it before. We've seen him get screwed over by trying it before. He's been on both sides of the move on this curved straightaway. He's right there behind, but I do not think he's going to go for it. Not this time. Not here. As Chrysalid, who's actually fallen back into their grasp, but Cosmic's opened up the gap to himself and Chrysalid just a little bit this time. And ahead of Cosmic is Avocado still. So Avocado is losing ground, almost side by side behind, but they're all gonna hold the lane going through the carousel. No changes thus far, but 3rd through 6th, all right on top of each other. 3rd through 8th, honestly. Well, 4th through 8th. 4th through 8th, all on top of each other. Right out the back of DL Avocado as he looks at Haya Cranky behind. I'm not Haya Cranky, at Cosmic behind. Cosmic in that BMW M8 trying to get one of his very, very rare top 5 results. BMW M8 that was an option to abandon the BMW M8 and go to the BMW GT3, the M4 that came out around, I don't remember if it was February or March of this year, but there is an option. But Avocado's team elected to stick with the M8 throughout the entire season, basically, although I think Avocado at one point subbed as a different driver in one of the other BMWs, but still, this has been a team that has committed with basically a unbalanced car for the majority of the season. It's not got them great results, but you have to admire their persistence. Bit of a twitch there from Avocado, big twitch and slide, but he is maintaining position, maintaining pace right now. Meanwhile, at the head of the field, it is still Barcode as he comes onto the straightaway once more. Followed by Moonrise. Again, we anticipate the majority of the field is going to pit this time by, so we're going to go ahead and knock out an ad break here. And when we come back, we'll see the field coming out of pit lane after everyone makes their second stop of this final stint of the 2025 P1R SEC season. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Nurburgring Nordschleife. We are 35 minutes into the race. Everyone has completed their first 2 rounds of tire life. We believe that it looks like everyone has just gone soft for their first 2 tire stints here. The gap between Barcode and Moonrise opened pretty significantly the lap before that pit stop. So, yeah, Moonrise's requirement to just put down some banger laps to close down Barcode is not coming to fruition. Again, the gap, 1,848 feet in Moonrise's favor. We'll quickly look at the penalties thus far. No penalties for Barcode, no penalties for Moonrise right now. Between Haya Cranky and Avocado, Haya Cranky has 1/4 of a mile. Avocado is coming dangerously close to 1/10 of a mile worth of penalty. So right now, between Haya Cranky and Avocado, Haya Cranky has a very slight advantage in this stint, but I believe in overall distance. Let's go ahead and run some very, very short calculations here. We're looking at a 6/10 of a mile difference in the favor of Avocado over High Cranky. So a 6/10 mile difference. Right now, that gap is not 6/10 between High Cranky and Avocado. It is opening up slowly, but it is not 6/10. But High Cranky is in clean air. Avocado is in clean air as well, but he is also trying to deal with the fact that Cosmic, and more frustratingly, Crizzlet is behind. Despite all the chaos that Crizzlet has been involved in the first 35 minutes of this stint, Crizzlet somehow still has no distance penalties at the stage of the event. Now again, throughout most of the season, we talk more about distance penalties, because if you can finish a stint without getting any distance penalties, that is a free extra point in the championship. Championship has already been locked up, and we don't really know where everyone is points-wise from third on back. The sheet is so messed up, it was almost impossible to tell. But it would be an extra point that I imagine Crizzlet and his team would appreciate anyway, if they can keep it clean. But we still have about 2/3 of this final stint to go through yet. But Crizzlet and Cosmic have had quite a few big run-ins with each other earlier in the day today. And now looks like they're about to be back at it again. Bit of a slide there by the BMW. And the Chevy slides almost in compassion. All right, and now they're about to come into the funnel section, where the walls are very, very close to the track, and going side by side is almost a death sentence. A section where Crizzlet had been screwed over before, back on lap 1, along with Avocado, who was ahead of them, and Moonrise, who was way up the road. Well, Avocado actually benefited from it. I'm getting everyone confused. We've had so many things happen just in this stint alone. I'm kind of getting some of this stuff confused. Either way, BMW trying to keep Chevrolet behind still for what is currently the 5th position. That is Avocado that they're actually closing in on. Oh, and the BMW goes off. Cosmic is off into the dirt. Big slide off. Loses a bunch of time, but Crizzlet is not able to get alongside. That is a great relief for Avocado, though, as the gap opens up just a little bit. Another big twitch by BMW. Please do not go black screen. They're literally about to go side by side. You bloody hell. No! It's over! And it's over! F1R Moonrise lags out, and it is over! So ESV will win the last 4 endurance events by default, because Moonrise has lagged out just under a third of the way through. Oh, and ST Sunrise just lagged out as well. Oh, they're side by side, BMW versus Chevy. You don't want to go side by side through here, but trying anyway. Desperation, I would argue. The BMW's way off. Big slide off. Now Crizzlet clears them. Well, with Moonrise dropping out, event victory goes to ESV Barcode by default, as long as Barcode does not have a disconnect of his own. I won't lie, I'm a little bit biased. I really want to see Hyatt Cranky pull off a stint win, let alone a full-on event win. I would love to see a Barcode disconnect, but that just never happens. We never get anything good quite on that level. And the gap between Barcode and Hyatt Cranky is so gigantic, and Cranky has nothing compared to what Barcode's pace is. Grizzled has caught Avocado. So Avocado hemorrhaging time slowly, while High Cranking not in position to win unless Barcode disconnects. If Avocado continues to bleed off time like he is right now, there is a legitimate shot that High Cranking may steal second overall in the event. Here comes Chrysalid to the inside. Can he clear him? He does. He clears him without issue. Now the McLaren is behind the Chevy. He looks back to the outside, not willing to pull side by side through here as they now get into the braking zone. 5 completed laps at this stage of the event. Does Avocado go for a dive on the Chevy in turn 1? No, he actually stays right behind. Makes a small... I couldn't tell if he made contact with the Chevy or the Chevy just locked up the rears, but the Chevy had a bit of a slide back there. Speaking of slide, just a little bit farther back, Illusion and RX. Mercedes versus Dodge. This fight has been continuing. I thought RX would have disposed of Illusion by now, but Illusion has done a good job keeping this Mercedes behind somehow. Mind you, though, RX still has no distance penalties. Illusion has 0.062 miles worth of distance penalties right now. Sit Sunrise pitting this time by. Not sure why. He should be good on fuel and tires. He is not good on tires. So I wonder if he put on mediums on a prior stint and I just completely missed the information. Boy, if that doesn't tell you the gap between Barcode and Cranky, nothing will. But Chrysalid's now up into third. Avocado's still with him, though. Again, gap between Avocado and Chrysalid is about 0.6 of a mile. I think the gap between them on track is maybe... factoring in the distance penalty as well, it's maybe 1/10 of a mile. Right now, I think Avocado is still doing everything he needs to bring home what would be... Now, Moonrise has dropped out second overall in total distance. Big thing, though, is that Chrysalid is running away gradually from Avocado. And if Cosmic catches Avocado by some chance, that could really cause Avocado some issues. Now, granted, this McLaren seems to be a lot faster in the daytime. Doesn't seem to be as competent at night. So maybe once the sun starts rising in about the last 30 minutes of this event, we'll see him kind of bounce back into contention here. But he is bleeding off so much time now at night that may not matter. There just may not be enough time for him to do anything. Well, for the moment, everything seems to have calmed down a bit. And with the race win basically decided, it's really just going to come down to High Cranky versus Avocado, who's going to end up with the overall best distance at the end of this all. We're going to go ahead and knock out Twitch-mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll be seeing the field preparing to make what will be their third stop of the day here, or of the night here, at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Oh! Both Avocado and Cosmic both missed the carousel that time. Avocado worse than Cosmic. No, that's not... I'm sorry. That's Chrysalid and Avocado. So Chrysalid and Avocado both missed. Chrysalid worse than Avocado there. Again, High Cranky is gradually pulling away. Does Avocado have anything to fight back against Chrysalid with? Chrysalid now the only remaining Chevrolet at this stage of the event. It is... Oh, and that's a move! And Chrysalid goes off into the dirt, and Avocado is back by him for third. And then immediately Avocado drops the tire into the dirt. And while these two keep going back and forth, Cosmic continues to hang out just close enough to watch, but he does not have the speed to actively fight for these positions. He needs these two to keep going off if he wants to steal something from them. Avocado front tires, 54%. Chrysalid, he's been burning up his rears more than his fronts, I believe, but right now it's relatively well balanced, 54, 55% all around. And then Cosmic in this BMW M8 just a little bit behind, 54%. Also, RX has finally cleared Illusion as well. So RX is just behind Cosmic. He could also... Oh! Who was that went off? Was that Avocado? It was! Avocado's gone off in the same area that Chrysalid went off a few laps ago. And now it's Avocado who's gone off. And that's what High Cranky did to bring home a potential second here. Now, I don't know if that's going to be enough to put Avocado far enough behind High Cranky for High Cranky to steal it, but that is the kind of mistakes that High Cranky needs Avocado to keep making, and now Avocado is under threat from Illusion. Illusion and the Dodge right behind that McLaren as they come onto the straightaway. Meanwhile, RX is right there behind Cosmic. Chrysalid is actually in clean air for once. Here comes a move. Illusion trying to go the long way around Avocado this time. Can he clear him? The Dodge does not have great top end. The McLaren has competent top end. There's going to be side by side. It's going to be a matter of who breaks first. I think it's going to have to be the Dodge. Yeah, the Dodge has to break first. Just does not have the top end necessary. High Cranky pits, but Barcode, has he stayed out? Am I seeing this right? Yeah, Barcode must have put on a set of medium tires. He did put on medium tires. But everyone else is pitting for new softs. Now, granted, Barcode is so much faster that it won't really matter. We know that High Cranky does not have the speed to do anything to Barcode. So we watch the field, the majority of the field, as they're making their stops. Barcode should have the fuel to make it to the end, right? I mean, if Barcode ran out of fuel, it'd be absolutely hilarious. Yeah, he'll easily make it to the end. He has plenty of fuel. He'll make it to the end without issue. Avocado has ended up back here in the middle of a fight again with Illusion. Cosmic is ahead of him still, so is RX and Crislin. 4 cars all on top of each other. This midfield fight has been absolutely absurdly insane. This has been fantastic. Even though, sadly, all the excitement over who's going to win this race has been deflated like a lead balloon, the fight for the mid-pack results has been absolutely fantastic today. That Dodge Viper of Illusion trying to put the screws to Avocado once again. Big thing is, though, that Haya Cranky is just not running away from the rest of these drivers like he needs to. All 4 of these guys keep kind of tripping over their own metaphorical genitalia at slowing them all down, but Haya Cranky is just not gone from this group like he needs to be. Crislin, though, is kind of the wild card as well. Crislin could still rush up there and give Haya Cranky some problems. That is the other thing. We don't know if it's going to happen, but it is a possibility. This here is RX and Cosmic. They were way farther down the grid earlier, but now they are fighting for what is basically 4th on track. RX in the Mercedes, Cosmic in the BMW. BMW fighting for one of those very rare top 5 results for that BMW M8 entry. And all the while, they have Avocado and Illusion just a little bit farther back. If all 4 of these guys end up on top of each other going through Nordschleife again, this is going to be insane. Riding on board with Avocado here in the McLaren. This is the McLaren that is the champion overall, the Black Pearl entry, but this team has really, really been struggling today. Oh, the Mercedes is off, and RX falls behind Cosmic, so Cosmic in the BMW goes up to 4th now. And just lets Avocado get a little bit closer. Might be able to sniff a bit of a draft from that Merc ahead. He still has the Dodge of India Illusion behind him, though, giving him some level of hiccup and issue as well. Dodge, Mercedes, Chevrolet, BMW. Oh, and Avocado's off into the dirt there. And the Dodge follows in pursuit. That's going to help out those 2 ahead, though. Lets them maintain position just a bit better. They can fight with each other more on merit. Parts of the night sky are starting to get just a little bit brighter here at Nurburgring Nordschleife as we continue to watch this 4-car fight from 4th to 7th between Cosmic, RX, Avocado, and Illusion. And it is Cosmic who is having an abnormally strong day right now in this final set. Oh, and the Mercedes goes up! The Mercedes is way up! Hard into the tire barrier! No damage in this series, so he'll be able to continue without issue. But RX now falls back to 7th. This moves Illusion back up to 6th, and Avocado back into the top 5 now, as he's going to try and run back down on NDL Cosmic once more. Slide there. The Avocado is closing slowly but surely on Cosmic. We're not really focusing on your leader barcode. It's guaranteed that he's going to walk off with this win. It would require a disconnect or some sort of massive underfueling issue for Barcode to lose this stint and lose this race overall. Avocado's got to be so glad that his team locked up the championship at the end of Kailami, because Barcode's performance has been pretty darn solid today, despite, how awful that very first stint was, where he went 9 laps on the hard tires. Despite that, he has been fast enough. He has outdriven all that time he has lost. Avocado's got to be so thankful that their team locked up the championship before coming into this event. Illusion still runs right there behind Avocado, and both of them are closing in on that BMW and mate. Cosmic slaps the outside wall. Into the carousel, the BMW is barely keeps it on. He kept it on, but it was not smooth looking by any measure. A look to the inside there by Illusion on Avocado. Nothing he can do though. Oh, big twist! Avocado slides into the dirt a long way! He's still twisting and sliding! Finally gets it back together. Somehow he didn't lose too much time to Cosmic despite that prolonged sliding period, but look at this. He is now over 1/10 of a mile in distance penalties. This is great news for High and Cranky. He now has almost 1/10 of a mile over him just off the back of penalties. And for that ZR team, High and Cranky is the only driver in the ZR group entered in today's event. He is one of the drivers trying to Ironman it, and High and Cranky might be able to pull off a top result better than the series champion in this final race. It's not over yet, but Cranky is doing everything he needs to, and Avocado keeps having issues here in the nighttime stints. Another big twist. He slaps the inside wall. He's normally out of control through here. He is way out of control. Deep into the grass. He keeps it back onto the circuit. Is that going to be considered a cut? It does not look like it, I guess. Somehow that's not a cut. And he does fall back into Illusion's grasp now. Illusion goes into the dirt now. Barcode pits, but he's going to maintain the lead regardless because he is so far ahead of the rest of the field. Barcode's just kind of cruise control mode now. He doesn't have to push for fastest lap. He knows he has fastest lap pretty much by default. He doesn't have to push for anything crazy. He knows this race win is in his bag as long as he doesn't mess up on strategy and underfuel the car. As long as he doesn't disconnect, we know Barcode has this race won by default. Avocado has just a lick of draft on Cosmic, but he is not close enough to pull alongside, and Illusion has draft on him as well, so these three continue to all stay close to each other. RX is running a little bit farther back, trying to close in. I do think that RX is faster than these three drivers. The thing is, though, that right now, Cosmic seems to have figured out how to be nice and consistent. His mistakes have been a lot more minimal compared to these drivers he's been fighting with. I feel like Illusion hasn't made too many mistakes either, but his problem is that he's in a Dodge, and that Dodge is just no good for fighting mano-y-mano on track. Down the start-finish straight once again. Avocado is right there behind Cosmic. Does he make a move? Does he make a dive? Going into turn number 1. BMW versus McLaren. Is this going to be a move? No, he brakes nice and early, so he doesn't end up hitting the BMW. He'll probably try and get a nice clean run out. That's exactly what he does. Gets a nice clean run out, and Cosmic goes into the dirt. Just as I was saying, he was doing a good job minimizing his mistakes. He loses ground, and he now falls to 5th. Avocado now back in front of that BMW. Again, Avocado versus High Cranky. They are fighting for what would be 2nd overall at the moment. And while Cranky is slowly pulling away from Avocado, I do not think it's fast enough for him to relax and say he's got it. He still needs to absolutely hoof it right now. Halfway through the final stint of this race, the final stint of the season. And every position that is not the win is still up for grabs here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Down the straights. BMW still runs there right behind that McLaren. Avocado's been a little bit mistake prone, but that BMW has not been perfect either today. They are finally starting to pull away from Illusion just a little bit. But once you get into Nordschleife, that Dodge gets a little bit stronger. Not around all of Nordschleife, but parts of it, big parts of it. But if Avocado can run away from Cosmic, dispose of Cosmic, then Avocado can just focus on clean laps and maybe use that to negate some of the distance penalties that he has to Hired Cranky. Because again, Avocado had the advantage over Hired Cranky by 0.6 of a mile coming in. When you look at distance penalties, Avocado has already lost over 1/10 of a mile to Cranky just off of distance penalties alone. That is the fight for what will be second overall. Mind you, this McLaren entry hasn't been perfect. This McLaren entry was running second overall in Stint 1, and while it still took second overall, it had a big accident going over the jump and lost a huge chunk of time there. It has not been a perfect time for the McLarens. The McLarens have really been struggling here today. Cosmic has now fallen behind the Dodge of Illusion. And that BMW is back out of the top 5 positions now, once again. Still running right behind the Dodge. Do you commit to a big move? Do you go for something crazy? If these two spend too much time fighting, it'll be all that Avocado needs. He won't have to worry anymore. He can just focus on clean laps. Oh, that Dodge is into the dirt! Boy, is that Dodge into the dirt! Way into the dirt! And Cosmic goes back to 5th now. Cosmic and Illusion now both have nearly 1/10 of a mile of distance penalty, still better off than what Avocado is at. And RX has less penalties than all of them. Mind you, RX has also now caught Illusion, but we saw earlier, RX seems to take a long time trying to get by that Dodge Viper. Looking real quickly at your leader. This is ESV Barcode. I think he has put on another set of medium tires. For Hired Cranky, he is likely going to be running softs right now. But Hired Cranky is just trying to outrun Avocado. He is not worried about anything else. Crizzlet in his own fight trying to secure what could be a 3rd or 4th result. Is he going to have the fuel? Yeah, he'll have the fuel make it to the end. Then you have Avocado, who is now in 4th and finally pulling away from the drivers behind just a little bit. If Avocado can minimize mistakes, he might still be able to secure 2nd overall. 5th on track is NDL Cosmic, trying to fight for what would be a top 5 result. A very, very rare result for this BMW M8 entry, but Cosmic is trying to make it happen here at the very end of the season. Then you have RX, who has apparently muscled his way by Illusion with no issue this time. RX had a big off earlier, just before the funnel section of the circuit. He's trying to recover from that. He's clear of Illusion. He's also better off on distance penalties in both Cosmic and Avocado ahead, so that could also help him here. A reminder, RX was not able to start in Stint 2 due to exhaustion issues. He's really just here for pride. He is basically guaranteed to only finish about 10th, I believe, at best. And the Mercedes misses. Oh, is that Crizzlet? What's happened to Crizzlet? Crizzlet is slow. Crizzlet is very slow. Whatever happened to him there in the carousel? Catastrophic. And that moves Avocado now back into the top 3 positions. Now, it doesn't actually close the gap between Avocado and Hired Cranky, but Avocado is back into the podium positions. There is no traffic now between himself and Hired Cranky. Now again, Hired Cranky has been generally faster, mostly because Avocado keeps getting up involving in accidents or incidents and keeps fighting with people. But now Avocado does not have to worry about passing anybody on his fight with Hired Cranky for what would be 2nd overall. They have a slide there by Cosmic just behind. RX trying to close in on Cosmic, and he would be bringing Illusion with him if he can catch them. And if those 3 start fighting, I think Avocado will have a 3rd place result in this stint on lock. But again, 2nd in overall distance. It was 0.6 of a mile in Avocado's favor coming into this stint. But that gap is really looking big right now. It's looking big, and it keeps getting bigger. Was that the BMW of Cosmic who had a big off there? It sure looked like he had a big off. That's an off. Somehow does not count as a problem, and Chrysalid gets by Illusion immediately, pretty much. Pure speed in that Corvette lets him destroy the Dodge Viper here. Now Viper will have the draft back off of the Corvette, though. RX fighting with Cosmic. This is all that Avocado needs. These guys are fighting. He should not have to worry about them going forward. Here we go. RX should be close enough to have a great run on Cosmic here. Also, everyone in this fight will be pitting this time by. Look at that. Chrysalid and Illusion side by side further back. RX is not closing on Cosmic like we thought he would. Thought he would be able to pull alongside, but that is not happening. But Illusion has passed Chrysalid. It feels like it's topsy-turvy day. Dodges are making passes in straight lines, and the Mercedes are not making passes in straight lines. Okay, now the Chevy is back in front using sheer horsepower. BMW still has that Mercedes right behind him. Again, all these drivers are going to be pitting this time by, coming into this pits now. Barcode is running medium tires. He's going to have a massive advantage on track over Haya Cranky, but he's going to be bleeding it off gradually due to being on old medium tires. And that's the majority of the field coming in the pits. We know Snowbarski, who is way off in the back, will be paying this time as well, we believe. But your leader is still ESV Barcode. Basically guaranteed the stint win, and with F1R Moonrise's disconnect, guaranteed the overall win. For the ESV team, you win some, you lose some based off the back of disconnects. ESV's team had a disconnect in the second stint back at Silverstone in the second event of the season, lost that race, fell down to I think it was like a 20th result overall because of that disconnect, and that is one of, if not the biggest reason why the ESV team here is not in championship contention. They were eliminated from the championship, and the championship was secured by Avocado's team last month because of that. But now, at least at the very end, it seems like a disconnect has worked out in the favor of the ESV team at the very end of the season. This is Haya Cranky, and this is Avocado. The gap between Haya Cranky and Avocado continues to gradually get larger and larger. It needs to be more than 6/10. It wouldn't be an outright win in a event. It wouldn't even be a stint win. But Haya Cranky soloing, out-driving the champion car would be incredible if he can pull it off. Then you have Cosmic, who's trying to get a 5th place near the end. And then you have this gaggle of cars. RX, Chrysalid, and Illusion all on top of each other once again. Mind you, Chrysalid still somehow has no distance penalties despite being involved in several big issues with Cosmic early on in the event. We're going to go ahead and knock out an ad break while we watch this group all gradually close back down on themselves. We'll be back momentarily here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. Oh no, oh! They kept it on! I can't believe they kept it on track through there. That should have been an accident. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring Nordschleife. About 48 minutes left in this final stint of the season. And the fight for third on back has been absolutely insane. Avocado, Cosmic, RX, Crizzlet, and Illusion all closing back in on each other once more. You ride on board with Illusion, last of these 5 cars that have all been fighting. Snowbarski is about a mile or so back from this group, so he's not likely to factor into this all. A lot of drivers here fighting for their own various reasons, but Avocado just needs to put together some great laps so he can try and minimize the gap that he is losing to Higher Cranky. He needs to maintain his 0.6 of a mile advantage over Higher Cranky by the end of this stint. But as this is going on, I do not know if that's going to happen. I'm not saying it won't happen, I just do not know if it will happen. Barcode is walking off with this win pretty much by default. We know that's going to happen. Unless Barcode messes up a strategy, underfuels the car, or puts on hard tires, or has some sort of catastrophic failure, we know there's no chance that Barcode gets caught by High Cranky on the run to the end here. But High Cranky, running in second, is trying to secure what would be their best finishing result in one of these races, and also trying to outrun who would be Avocado, who is the championship winning car and team thus far today. This time it looks like all 5 will keep it on track there, going through the carousel. They have a twitch and slide, but it looks like Avocado is finally putting it together and gapping Cosmic just a little bit. So while they got really close to each other coming out of pit lane, now it seems like the problem is resolving itself for the most part, and Avocado is pulling away, and RX goes into the dirt, and here comes Crizzlet, and Crizzlet's gonna force the Mercedes on the outside. He said, no, you went off track, you stay out there. He muscles his way alongside, and Crizzlet is by RX now. Avocado, I think, is on medium tires right now. That might explain why he's not been able to run away from the drivers behind. If he's on medium tires, trying to cut out a pit stop later on, that could have some significant implications in his fight against Higher Cranky. Mediums are a big strategy call, but it does seem like that might be what Higher Cranky is trying to make happen here. If he's just far enough ahead of this BMW that Cosmic cannot catch his draft, then it may be all it takes to work out in Avocado's favor. Well, Cosmic might also be on mediums, though, by the looks of it. So if third and fourth are both on mediums, that could get really interesting. What if Crizzlet, who is in fifth? No, Crizzlet's definitely on softs. So Crizzlet should be able to catch and dispose of the BMW in the following lap. I don't know if he's going to have enough time to catch and dispose of Avocado. And again, he'll have to pit almost right away. They're probably going to be paying with about 36 minutes left. Well, Crizzlet will be. Avocado and Cosmic will be pitting probably with about 28 minutes left, I imagine. What if Higher Cranky? He is still on track. Is he on mediums as well right now? No, he is on softs. This is just not the lap he needed to pit on, I guess. So yeah, no one's pitting this time by. We'll see more changes in about a lap's time here. Cosmic has been caught by Crizzlet, though. How long will it take for the Chevy to get by the BMW? These two have been electric to watch And not just electric as in high voltage, but also high amps. And if you know anything about electricity, and I don't know very much about it, but I know that it's not volts that kill, it's amps. And this has been a high amp electric fight between these two. I don't even know what amp stands for. All I know is that volts aren't what kills. I mean, with enough volts it will kill you. It's amps that kills. Just about a third of the event left here. Most interesting thing is that Crislid, despite all the controversy he's been in this stint, has still no distance penalties whatsoever at this stage of the event. I don't know how in the world that has happened, but that is the case. RX and Illusion are still fighting back there in 6th and 7th, but they have not been able to keep up with these drivers farther up. I have to wonder, are these guys on... I think they are on soft still. Yeah, I think these guys are still on softs. So I don't know why they've not been able to keep up with the Chevy. You would think they'd be able to, but that has not been the case. It seems like RX and Illusion has kind of fallen off the pace. Might just be due to exhaustion for them. This is, to be fair, one of the most difficult tracks to run around on. Coming up to the hill once more. Cosmic continues to keep Crislid behind him, and Cosmic continues to run just on the edge of being in the draft range of Avocado. But those two have not actually had a significant fight with each other for a bit. The thing that could really end up upending stuff is that at the rate this is going, Hyatt Cranky will be paying at the end of this lap. Avocado and Cosmic will not. So after making a stop, Hyatt Cranky will end up behind Avocado and Cosmic on track. If he catches them in that in-between lap, that could hold up Hyatt Cranky enough to give Avocado a bit of a leg up. Don't know if that's going to be what happens for certain, but that is a possibility. Also, Avocado and Cosmic are set up to make it to the end on one more stop. Hyatt Cranky would still need 2 more. I'm honestly kind of shocked that Crislid has been able to run right behind this duo, but he has not been able to take the fight to them. He's not getting alongside, he's not putting his nose anywhere. He just does not seem to have what it takes to make the moves happen now. I have to wonder if maybe it's exhaustion, because Crislid's another one of the drivers who are Ironmanning this. Again, this final race of the season, Ironmanning has been made legal. Most of the season, you were not allowed to Ironman, although we did have an ESV driver Ironman at Bathurst for some reason. Despite the fact that it was blatantly illegal, he was allowed to Ironman it and still took home the win anyway. Still not sure what the justification was there. Never got any word on that. But here, Ironmanning has been made legal for this final stint. And you have to wonder, at this point, exhaustion, is it kicking in? People who have been here for all this time, like Barcode, like Hyatt Cranky, like Cosmic, like Crislid, like RX. Well, not really RX, because RX did skip out on a stint. But these drivers have been racing for over 5.5 hours, over what is roughly a 7.5 hour period or so. Cosmic closes in on Avocado in some areas, and then the momentum seems to switch, and then Cosmic loses Avocado and falls back into Crislid's grasp, but Crislid does not seem to have what it takes to make the moves necessary. Cosmic has a great run here. Do you try to go for a big dive in here? I would not, but he has been very, very high risk today. Does he try to do it? No, he thought of it, but is not willing to commit to it. I think Avocado may have dropped the tire into the dirt, losing a bit of ground to this duo once more. BMW very nearly went off circuit there. And all of a sudden, these top three, well, not top three, this fight, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, all on top of each other once again as they're rushing down to the carousel once more. Again, the most interesting thing is going to be Avocado versus Hyatt Cranky. We're anticipating that Avocado will be pitting later than Cranky. Cranky will be pitting this lap. Avocado will be pitting the lap afterwards. They're going to be offset on each other when it comes to tire strategies. But Avocado, who spent a big chunk of the middle section of this stint bouncing around, sliding off circuit and stuff, seems to have come to a little bit of a calmer point in controlling the car. It seems to have figured things out, hitting the lines a little bit better now. Now, he is slower than Hyatt Cranky, but he is trying to cut out an entire pit stop. Could that be enough for him to secure second place today? That team has finished in the podium in the last two events, which was a big thing that helped them bring home the championship. I think a podium in today's event is highly likely as well for Avocado. The question is going to be, will it be second or third? Oh, did Avocado go off there? Boy, Avocado is off. Avocado is way up. He's into the wall. He's way against the wall. He loses the position to Cosmic. He's still trying to come up to speed. Here comes Crislin. Does Crislin have anything for him? Not yet, no. And Crislin goes off. He keeps it out of the dirt, but now it backs him up to RX and Illusion. Barcode makes a stop, unsurprisingly. But again, he's so far ahead, that's not going to matter. And Hyatt Cranky will be paying this time anyway. Avocado now in fourth, although he has gotten away from Crislin because Crislin went off. And now Crislin has to deal with RX in that Mercedes once again. Down the straight. RX going to try and go the outside. Two very high-power cars side by side as they go under the bridge. At the top of the hill, on the back straightaway. And now dive down through the twisties. Someone has to back out first. Someone has to back out first. Who's it going to be? It will be the Mercedes of RX who backs out of it. Cosmic pits, Avocado pits, Crislin pits, huh? Are they all pitting? Avocado, I thought, had the tires to go longer. No, he did not. I miscalculated somewhere. I thought Cosmic did also. No, okay, so everyone... Oh, Cosmic's out of fuel. Oh, wow, that's dramatic. So everyone here pitting together once again. 35 minutes left. It's about 8 minutes a lap. So about 4 more entire laps and then about a third of 1 lap afterwards. That's what it's looking like. So everyone pits at the same time. 4 entire laps left for certain. Do drivers go soft and deal with very worn out softs at the very end? Or do they try to do some stuff with the medium tires? So that way their tires at the very end are not nearly as cooked. With how intense the fight has been from third on back today, it may be a legitimate strategy to go ahead and run a harder tire compound and hope that you can gain some positions off the back of having better tires in the last fragments of a lap here. Cosmic, after pit stops, has cycled out ahead of Avocado again. Then you have Chrysalid, followed by Indial Illusion and RX. Snowbarski coming out of pit lane. Basically secured 8th. He's not fast enough or clean enough to really have a fight for anything higher than 8th. And in SC Sunrise, at least he'll stay on the lead lap, and it looks like he might be able to finish this with no penalties, but it's been a rough time for this one-off entry here at the end of the season that this Dodge Viper has been in. So Barcode is your leader, has led the pretty much the entire event since lap 1. Hyatt Cranky is second, trying to secure second place overall here. Indio Cosmic is third, Avocado is fourth. And again, the big thing is that Avocado needs to close down that gap between himself and Hyatt Cranky. And as I say, that Avocado goes off into the dirt. That's not going to help. These kind of prolonged, continued mistakes throughout the entire event is just making it more and more likely that we're going to see ZR Hyatt Cranky steal a second place result overall here at Nurburgring. gets the BMW, and he goes off right in the middle of the field. He recovers, but he went into the wall, spun around, and that took Chrysalid with him. Chrysalid was involved, so Illusion is back up to 4th. Avocado is back in 3rd now. This group of cars cannot stop making mistakes, and now Cosmic is shunted well out of the top 5 again. And Avocado is back in 3rd in relatively cleaner air once more. So again, Avocado doing what he needs to. But it's too late, I think. That gap, look at that gap on track. Avocado to High Cranky, that is easily more than a mile between the two of them. High Cranky just needs to remember to put extra fuel in on the final stop. Do not want to fall into the same mistake that F1R Moonrise did in Stint 2. Bit of a twitch, bit of a slide, and then Chrysalid goes off. He's not the only one. Illusion's just gone off as well. Illusion and Chrysalid both have problems, and Chrysalid is digging through the dirt, still digging through the dirt. Now he has a time penalty, and he's falling back to 6th. So Chrysalid and Illusion both go off. Chrysalid now has a time penalty. It's taken him nearly 3/4 of this stint. And suddenly, Cosmic has a fight for 6th all over again. And Illusion in the Dodge Viper is suddenly back up in the 4th. And Avocado can now see that bloody Dodge Viper closing in behind him as well all over again. Oh, and the Avocado's into the dirt there. Not by much, but he definitely lost ground. He's definitely lost some ground because Illusion has now visibly closed the gap back down again. We're going to go ahead, because Twitch is shouting at me, I'm going to go ahead and take a Twitch-mandated ad break. We'll be back momentarily here at Nurburgring Nordschleife as this race continues to get curiouser and curiouser here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring Nordschleife as this race continues to develop in strange ways in these fights for 3rd on back. Chrysalid has an off, Illusion is there, Illusion has an off, and Chrysalid goes by, Cosmic's in the middle of it, RX and Avocado have kind of scooted away from this trio for the moment. Not by a massive amount, but by a bit. Oh, and Cosmic hard into the outside wall there. That will likely be enough to take Cosmic out of contention for a top 5 result, though. That will probably decide that fight. But for these two, it's still hot for 5th and 6th. Avocado still runs in 3rd. You can hear RX, but you can't really see him. And also, if you look at the sky, the sun is starting to come up. We will have a nice warm track for probably the last 2 full laps around here. How will that change the handling of our cars here? That will be the big question. Avocado finally is able to keep it on track through this section of the circuit. still, he has... Excuse me. He has about 6 times the amount of distance penalties as Hyatt Cranky does right now. He needs to figure out a way to close that gap down between himself and Hyatt Cranky, and I just do not see that happening. Not saying it can't happen, I'm just saying I don't see it happening. Oh, and he's into the wall! Coming onto the straightaway at the most important straight on the circuit, he goes into the wall! Grizzled and Cosmic had another swap in positions, or Illusion and Grizzled had another swap in positions. RX still not close enough, though, to close in on Avocado, but Avocado slapping the outside wall there does close the gap down just a little bit more. Again, we're anticipating that everyone is going to just run soft tires to the end here. All the strategy, randomness, and wildness has kind of gone away. The only kind of strategy wildness we've had is that I think Barcode and Sunrise are the only drivers who have made one fewer stop. Oh, Snowbarski, Sunrise, and Barcode, the only drivers that have made one fewer stop. Everyone else is just committing to all stops all the way through. But Snowbarski, Sunrise, and Barcode have run about 6 laps, so 2 pairs of 3 laps each on the medium tires. Otherwise, everyone's just been running all softs all day long. Avocado maintained the majority of his advantage over RX, though. I do think the Avocado is setting himself up for a podium overall, but it looks like he might lose second to, very unexpectedly, to Hyatt Cranky. But again, when Hyatt Cranky pits, I cannot stress this enough, he needs to remember to put in extra fuel. He normally puts in about 30% in the tank, and that's enough for 2 laps exactly, but he's going to be going just a little bit more than 2 laps. It is incredibly important he remembers to put in a little bit more fuel. Snowbarski pitting now, as he's going to probably take off the mediums and will put on, well, no, he'll probably put on a set of mediums to the end with this, because there's about 3 more laps left for him. So yeah, Snowbarski probably putting on mediums, and we'll just run that to the end of the race. Avocado now almost up at 0.2 of a mile's worth of penalties. And still, RX is not too far away, and some of the lights in the GP section are now turning off as the sun is rapidly coming up. And again, the track is going to change. The way these cars handle are going to change one more time. How many positions is that going to alter? It does look like this 5-car fight from about 3rd to 7th has finally all spread out. Everyone finally has some nice big gaps between them at this stage of the event. Although the gaps are not big enough that if you have a mistake, you can still maintain your position. Real quickly looking at Barcode. He'll probably be paying at the end of this lap. Again, I imagine everyone's gonna be putting on soft tires. I just really hope Hyatt Cranky remembers to put enough fuel in to go a little bit longer. I like underdog stories, and the ZR teams have not had great results throughout the majority of this season. And Hyatt Cranky's trying to out here Ironman it as the rest of his team has basically abandoned the championship in the very end here. I would love to see Hyatt Cranky really prove himself by pulling out a top result here. I'd like even more if Barco disconnected and it gave Hyatt Cranky the overall win, but that's just not going to happen, so I'm not going to imagine that. Is that not a cut? Hyatt Cranky was definitely on the inside grass at full speed, but apparently that doesn't count as a cut, interestingly enough. RX runs relatively close to Avocado, but the big thing is that when you look at their distance penalties, RX only has to stay within about 500 feet of Avocado, and he'll leapfrog him on circuit. They have a drop into the grass there. Again, car's going to handle a little bit different at this stage of the event. Everything's going to be feeling a little bit odd right now. Illusion up the road from Chrysalid. The Illusion in that Dodge Viper should have some good tire life going forward. Chrysalid really bounced over that curb. Like they put gigantic bouncy springs in the car for fun instead of for racing. Oh, RX into the dirt, and that will likely be enough. As long as Avocado doesn't send it off, I think mistakes like that will be enough to keep Avocado ahead of RX here. Still, a lot of different cars in this fight from 3rd to 7th. You have McLaren in 3rd, Mercedes in 4th, Illusion is in the Dodge, Chrysalid's in the Chevy, and then Cosmic is in the BMW. So that prolonged fight has been 5 different drivers and 5 completely different cars all throughout the day today. It's been fantastic to watch play out. But I do think at this point it's just about over. Now it's all just how much can Avocado close down High Cranky to salvage the result here. Does seem like Avocado has opened up the gap pretty significantly on RX right now. And Illusion is starting to close the gap down on RX. And if he does, he'll bring Chrysalid with him here. Again, right now, High Cranky only has about 1/7 of the penalties that Avocado does. And has a significant gap on him on circuit. Surely that gap on track is big enough to be 6/10 of a mile. Or at this point, it'd be closer to 5/10 of a mile. Surely that would be the case, you would think. Oh, Avocado into the dirt. Not as bad as he's been before, but still in the dirt here. This little section where the racing line is incredibly narrow seems to be the area where he's been struggling the most here in this stint. Even in the daytime. Less than 20 minutes now in the event. Oh, and he's into the dirt. Not massively, but he dropped the tire into the dirt, bleeds off a huge chunk of time. Barcode making his final stop now. And Avocado into the dirt again. I think he'll be able to keep it out of the dirt coming onto the straight, though. Yes, he'll keep it out of the dirt coming onto the straight at least. So he'll maintain his gap over RX. High Cranky making his final stop. We're likely going to see everyone make their final stops here. About 19 minutes left. So everyone will stop, and they'll get 2 full laps in about a third. Well, at least for Barco, it'll be about a third of another lap. I don't know if High Cranky or anyone else will get out of the GP section of Nurburgring. Real quickly checking on Barcode. Yeah, he'll be fine. He has the fuel in the tires to the end. He won't have to worry at all. High Cranky is the one I'm slightly worried about. He needs to have put extra fuel in. He did. He put extra fuel in. So while High Cranky will be slower, he'll have the fuel to run to the end without issue. So as long as he doesn't have a catastrophic accident or disconnect, second may be as good as his. It's going to be every spot from third on back in this stint that looks like it's going to be up in the air here. A little bit extra fuel in the McLaren here. or RX in the Mercedes, he also butchered a stop earlier. He's got 40%, so I'm a little bit iffy on what he can do. Then you have Indiel Illusion, who was actually the second driver over a tenth of a mile of distance penalties. We know those Dodges can go really far on their fuel tank. Excuse me, so he doesn't have to worry about putting extra in. Chrysalid has put extra in, so he'll be good to the end. Cosmic also should be good to the end anyway. So we are on the run to the end here at Nurburgring Nordschleife. We're going to go ahead and ride on board for a little bit with ESV Barcode as we knock out our last Twitch-mandated ad break for the season. When we come back, we'll be here to the checkered flag and the finish for the final stint of the final race of the P1R SEC 2025 Championship. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Nurburgring Nordschleife. Cosmic has gotten by Illusion somehow. So something has gone wrong with Illusion. Illusion has ended up with a lot more time penalties and has suddenly fallen behind Cosmic here late in the going. Chrysalid's back up to 5th right now. With 15 minutes left on the clock, Barcode's walking out to what will be 4 straight victories for the ESV team. Higher Cranky likely going to walk out here with 2nd in this stint and very likely will be a 2nd overall. Baines could be a little bit more interesting for 3rd though. Avocado seems to be struggling just a bit in these daytime periods, but RX is not having a much better time either. I do think the Avocado is just far enough ahead of RX. As long as he doesn't have a big instant, doesn't spirit into a wall or something, he'll be fine. And I don't think that Avocado is far enough up the road that he's going to be into the Nordschleife on their final lap. I think the only one who's going to be into the Nordschleife will be Barcode. High Cranky might be 2 or 3 corners into Nordschleife, but I think Barcode's going to be the only one actually into Nordschleife when the time is up here. It's going to be a matter of watching everyone's tires to the end. Real quickly, you look at Avocado, his tires 18% right now. You look at RX, his tires 17%. So RX does have a slight tire advantage that he can push forward on Avocado. It's not a massive one, but it is a advantage. He can try to push on Avocado to steal third place result here. Run through the banked corner. They fire out once again. Fifth, sixth, and seventh. Well, sixth place can see fifth, and seventh place can see sixth. But between them, Crislid has way less distance penalties than everyone around him. So Crislid is likely going to be able to maintain fifth just off the back of how distance penalties play out. Although Cosmic has really been struggling in the latter half of this final stint. Bobble over the curbs there by Cosmic. Avocado sees RX gradually closing in on him, though. They got a lap and a little bit more. Doesn't Mercedes have anything for the highest running McLaren on track? Oh, and Avocado's into the dirt again. This is the third lap in a row he has gone off in the dirt in this prolonged corner. Here comes RX. RX bullies past, way past. And RX goes to third, but Avocado is close enough. He has the draft. He might still be able to fight back here. I think he's close enough to have the draft at least. We'll see. I don't know. He did bleed up a lot of speed coming onto the straight, but he should have the draft. Off the top of the hill, downhill. Avocado's definitely got the draft, but he's not close enough to make a move back on the Mercedes. Not now. Maybe he'll do it going into turn one on the final complete lap here. Both cars have a big slide into the heavy braking zone at the end of the straight. RX still holds third. Avocado wants it back. Reminder, in distance penalties, RX has the advantage by 0.07 of a mile. So if they finish like this, or even if they finish with Avocado just to have RX might still steal third overall from him just off of distance penalties. But again, tire life is going to be a big thing. We do not know how deep into an extra lap these guys are going to go. My guess is that these two will get most of the way around the GP circuit, but I don't think they're going to end up in Nordschleife proper. Big lunge by the McLaren. That was an awkward line, but he took a big lunge to stay right behind the Mercedes. Still there. Now he looks to the outside. Not going to commit going through a Schumacher S. He'll just hang out behind the Mercedes for now. Wants to see if the Mercedes can make a little bit of a mistake, a little bit of a bobble, so he can fire up alongside. Big straight here. You'll get plenty of draft, but it's the chicane that is at high speed at the end. It's a nice smooth chicane, so it'd be kind of hard for Avocado to try and go side by side into this braking zone. He stays behind the Mercedes just a little bit longer. Both cars slide coming out of there. I think Avocado was a little bit worse off, struggling to hold the inside line. RX holds it for now. Considering all these instances that these two have been in since basically lap one, to think that they are likely going to come home third and fourth is pretty bloody impressive, all things considered. Oh, Avocado deep into the dirt. He's still into the dirt, way into the dirt. Hasn't lost a huge amount of time to RX, but he's lost the draft. Oh, and look at that. Avocado, now all of a sudden, he's closing in on 1/4 of a mile of distance penalties with that. RX now almost has half of the distance penalties of Avocado. Comparing High Cranky to Avocado, High Cranky now only has about 1/9 of the distance penalties that Avocado has. It's only making things a little bit easier for Cranky to secure second here. Hard to believe that Avocado has ended up with so much penalties. And RX is scooting away just a bit here. Oh, and Avocado's into the dirt again. Seems like as it's gone from night to day, the handling on the McLaren has just gotten worse. Now, I think he is far enough ahead of 5th place that he doesn't have to worry about falling farther back than that. I think Crizzle is going to secure 5th. 6th place is likely going to be Cosmic here. Illusion keeps sliding off farther back, so he's likely going to walk up 7th. 8th will easily be Snowbarski. 9th will be Sit Sunrise. Biggest thing for Barco is he's just going to have to be a little bit cautious on his... Excuse me, he's going to have to be a little bit cautious on his tires in this run to the end here. High Cranky has a slightly similar thing, but again, nice large gap. Should be good on fuel to the end here. And now that is RX in 3rd instead of Avocado, I think Cranky should be able to just focus on lap times, or not even lap times, just focus on corners, focus on hitting the corners as good as possible. They'll be fine. Avocado's just sliding all over the place, really struggling to keep it on track now. Avocado has definitely lost touch with RX, but he has more than enough of a gap. He'll maintain 4th at the bare minimum. But he needs something to happen to Cranky if he wants to steal 2nd overall, and I'm just not sure that's going to happen. I think everyone's pretty much locked up where they're going to finish here, as long as Crizzlid or Cosmic don't have a catastrophic implosion here at the very end. I think Avocado is just about lost touch with RX. You can still see him, but it's becoming glaringly obvious that the tires have gone off, and Avocado is not having any confidence as these tires are falling off. Look at this. 52.6% for Avocado. For RX, 50.8. Night and day difference. And it's only just going to keep getting worse and worse here. Good news for Avocado is that he is not going to have to worry about going too deep into the extra lap. I don't even think this duo is going to complete the entirety of the GP on the extra little bit here, the GP section of the circuit. Can Barco keep it through? Oh! And RX went off! And Avocado goes back by! All of a sudden, the turns table at the last moment for third position. I was just about to click away from this, but now, all of a sudden, Avocado is back ahead of RX by a significant margin as RX throws away what could have been a podium result. Meanwhile, at the front of the field, Barcode is going to make it 4 straight wins in a row for the ESV team. 3 of them on merit on track, 1 of them won in the steward's office back at Bathurst. No championship, though, but still a respectable run, and I have to ask Barcode. Hopefully he'll jump into interviews afterwards. I'm going to have to ask him, does he think what he's learned here will help when they come down to the Nurburgring 24 for Tour in a week's time? High Cranky, I think he'll complete the majority of the GP circuit, if not all of it. Avocado, he's got to cross the line with about 1 minute and 50 seconds left, but his tires are cooked, and he still has to keep RX behind him. Mind you, RX doesn't have to pass Avocado. RX is just hanging out behind Avocado and will get 3rd place off the back of penalties. Then a little bit farther back, it looks like Crislid will maintain 5th. Cosmic should be able to come home with 6th. 7th will be Illusion. And considering that Crislid has less penalties than Cosmic, and Cosmic has less penalties than Illusion, I think these 3 are all secured as long as Crislid or Cosmic doesn't spear off into the circuit and get stuck into a sand trap or something. I'm really just interested to see if RX is going to close back in on Avocado. It's not like RX's tires are in perfect shape. His tires have quite a bit of wear on them as well. He's at 59% right now, but just for comparison, Avocado, as he heads up into the Schumacher S, he's at 62%. It's about a 3% difference when it comes to tire life between these 3. So RX will be faster, but it's not like he's going to be multiple seconds a lap faster. He'll be like tenths a second per sector, like a 1/10 of a second per sector faster. But again, RX does not have to overtake Avocado on circuit. Penalties will work out in his favor here. Barcode is deep into Nordschleife. Naya Cranky is relatively deep into Nordschleife as well, all things considered. Avocado now enters Nordschleife for the final time. Won't get too deep into it. And at the front, it will be ESV Barcode to make it 3 on-track wins in a row, 4 overall wins in a row for the ESV team here to end the P1R SEC Championship. Time's up. Over. Plow. And there's your end results. That gap between High Cranky and RX without penalties was about 6/10, a little under 6/10. With penalties, it was well more than 6/10. So we're going to go ahead and knock out an ad break, and when we come back, hopefully some of our finishers here will be willing to talk with us after this final event of the season is over. We'll be back momentarily.